No, it won't be the same.
It's fucking cold, mate.
No, see, that wasn't right.
Cold.
Oh,
You said it like you were a Pokemon and that was your name.
Pat, we're wearing our coats. Cold.
That's what the ending of The Shining was missing. It's just cold.
What a fucking film, eh?
It's a shame Dan's not here this week.
Yeah,
Very much so.
I could imagine him being in there, just as one of the ghosts, or one of the enchanted furnishers.
The lady in the bathtub.
Yeah, mainly the lady in the bathtub. Could you imagine? You think you're fucking snogging some hot lady, and then you wake up, and then it's Dan. You're like, oh!
Yeah, that would make you go insane and kill your family.
Oh man. How do you guys want to do it this week? Do you want to do it like we did last time and do like one film at a time?
Yeah, well, if you feel that. Otherwise, it's Shine by me.
Shine by me. That's basically what Dr. Sleep is, really.
I keep hearing I keep thinking of like the song for Stand By Me, but I keep hearing it as Lean On Me, and then I'm like, stand by me when you're not strong. And I'm like,
It's a good song, to be honest.
Oh, dear.
When you're not no, don't get it. Yeah, I've definitely got more to say on The Shining than I do on Stand By Me. So,
well, this is one thing that I was thinking about the double bill is, I don't know. I think it's a lesson to learn for if we do it again, because The Shining has kind of outshined Stand By Me in terms of like conversation points.
I do have to say though, your rationale for having this as a double bill was very much working for me, because when we were going to do it yesterday, I was like, fuck, I've got to watch this both in like the same night. But because I watch it like throughout the night and I'm by myself in my house, I'm like, okay. So I watched The Shining first. I was like, I'm so happy I get to watch Stand By Me. It's not scary at all.
Well, that's the thing for me, because it's something that I've always done, and it's just because I get so spooked by horror films, and The Shining, like it's the one that like really gets me, just because. I mean, I was saying to you guys before, like, I mean, I think that the film is so good at just like preparing you for things that never really happen. And there's only like a couple of things where like you get like a little jump, but those things really stick with me. And because I've been like preparing for nothing to happen for 2 hours, I just spend the rest of the night just being like, something's coming from somewhere, I don't know where, but I'm going to see twins. And it's just really horrible after for me. So I always have to watch a film like Stand By Me just to like clear my mind a little bit of that feeling.
The Shining is a weird one for me, because like it's in every essence a horror film, but when I sit down watching it, I never feel like it's a horror film. I never get that sort of foreboding feeling throughout the film. All I know is I'm watching all this cool shit, and then I'm like, Jack's gonna go mad soon.
Going mad.
Why does that lady have a bushy thing where her wiener should be? No, I don't have that at all. I'm big on the camera, like being its own like character and stuff, and like when it's just following them around and it's just this music going like, and I'm like, oh.
The music was so good, I have to say.
Music's fucking excellent.
That reminds me actually, because I was going to say like the music, like I think where that's like really effective is that opening shot, and an example of like why the music is so effective on that is that kind of that that helicopter footage of just the landscapes, that was actually used, I think, like the year after by Ridley Scott, because he wanted a wholesome ending for Blade Runner. So he phoned up
Yeah.
Stanley Kubrick and he was like, "Have you got anything that I can use for this?" So they
It's
used the
similar.
exact same shot, but in The Shining, you're going like, "This is fucking terrifying." But in Blade Runner, it's like, "Oh, that's a relatively happy ending."
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a big plus
All
for
in
the
the
score, I
music.
think. Yeah.
Interesting. Did you see the guy, reoccurring actor from Blade Runner in The Shining?
Who was that?
It was the barman.
Lloyd?
The barman?
Yeah,
Oh, really?
he was the creator of the Replicants. What was his name? Who creates Batty?
Oh, it was J.R. Sebastian.
Yeah.
Ah.
Hmm.
Oh, that's
Interesting.
interesting.
Rob, the shot you said, the shot at the beginning of The Shining.
Yeah, just the helicopter shot of like the sort of landscape, like the hills and stuff.
Yeah, the car going over the hills.
Oh, I didn't even remember that in the Blade Runner. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, apparently
Was
it was
that-
added in because like test audiences were like, we'd
Yeah.
prefer to have a happier ending than what you've given us. So Ridley Scott was just like, Stanley, help me.
Most of the time, audiences do.
Mm.
Sorry, what's his version? Was it meant to be a dark comedy?
No. so Stephen King, so it's really funny, right? Because if you look at all of the things that Stephen King has said about The Shining, it's always just like, no, I didn't think much of it. Stanley Kubrick seemed like a bit of a knob. And yeah, he hated it so much that he just went and adapted it himself and made a mini series out of it. And that's what he came up with completely seriously. But if you watch Maximum Overdrive, you'll see like, as a filmmaker, he's not what he is as a writer.
So, Rob, I've not read the books. So, Jax, I'm assuming, was mad from the outset in the book.
No, so that was one of the things that Stephen. I was going to say Stephen Kubrick.
I thought you hadn't read it.
No, I haven't.
Oh, I've read it.
Yeah, Alex, the one to ask about this. The only thing that I know about the book is just from reading so much about the film.
Because in the book, Jack is a lot more fleshed out. He's not mad from the beginning, but like he's just been fired from like the uni he works for, and like he's got to he's going to get this book together to kind of show that he's still like got it and all that. So like he's kind of been told to have a sabbatical where he's gonna, and that's why he's at the hotel. So he's gonna like write this book together to kind of like prove himself and that. But at the same time, like his marriage is kind of failing because like he got drunk and he hurt Danny at one point. So he is struggling with a drinking problem, and he's like, I'm not going to drink at all. But he like it's kind of like a subtle thing, like he keeps like rubbing his lips when he's frustrated because he wants to have a drink, but he can't. So but like when he gets to the hotel, he goes into like the janitor's closet and he finds a bunch of like clippings of stuff that happened like previously. And so he starts going, oh, that's interesting. So he starts researching it and writing it, and he starts integrating it into his book. And that's kind of how the hotel gets into his head. Like that's kind of how the haunting kind of starts. And then it's a slow build where he comes in with like just all these problems that he's kind of struggling with. And then the hotel sort of gets in and starts like exacerbating it because he's so frustrated in different areas. And like I prefer the book for this because I think it works for the film entirely, like as a horror, because like if you know, people like Jack Nicholson's character in this like do exist, and I think having someone isolated in that area, the ghost will target him because like he is just more kind of like prone to being shitty and violent and selfish and that, so they will like try and manipulate him because he's easier to manipulate. So like I think it works entirely well for the film, but I do prefer the book.
It's interesting because it always gets spoken about as like a Stephen King adaptation for people who don't like Stephen King. And I think it's interesting because it's like because a director like Stanley Kubrick, I mean, he just sort of does his own thing, doesn't he? And it is a very Stanley Kubrick film rather than a Stephen King film, I think. Because like even with the ending where you kind of zoom in on the shot and it's like it's Jack, but in what is it, 1921 or something.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sure, at the end, you mean?
Yeah, just bits like that, and like another interesting thing is like the architecture of the hotel is deliberately impossible. So there's all these little like Kubrick things where like it just sort of I think he's a director who liked people going away and talking about his films. So there's a lot of things in it that sort of encourage that rather than sort of his motivation, I think, being a faithful adaptation of it all. But I think
What was
that's
impossible about the architecture?
say that again, sorry.
What was impossible about the architecture?
So if you follow where Danny's going on his tricycle, and sort of like where he's supposed to be, it like if you sort of like trace it around, the top floor is like completely different to the bottom floor, and he's kind of like going around corners that shouldn't exist. And then another one is that in the boss's office when he has the interview at the start, there's like a massive window behind him. So that office should back on to where the elevator shaft is. So that window shouldn't be able to exist. And there's loads of little things like that.
Okay.
I've not even noticed.
Which, sorry, I don't want to give away like the Wendy theory too. And I know you really want to talk about it, but like, yeah, I was just so impressed when I found out about that. But we can keep on talking.
Well, no, that's one of the things that I think is really interesting about The Shining, because I mean it's like we were speaking about the other day, really, because I think I must have seen The Shining before I saw The Shining, so I was like,
Yeah.
I was
What's the
more,
Shining? Is this a joke or is it actually exist?
The
Is this
sinners,
some
you
kind
don't
of a
wanna get
joke?
Is this some kind of shinning?
Yeah.
the Shining is the Simpsons parody of The Shining.
Oh,
Well, there's like a line in it where like groundskeeper Willie goes up to Bart and he's kind of going like, "Hey, you can shin, can't you?" And he's like, "I think you mean shining." And he's like, "Careful, laddie, do you want to get sued?"
Yeah, I would have seen that when I was like really young. So like I would have been aware of sort of like no TV and no beer makes Homer something, or like before I was aware of no work, all work and no play.
Is this like a sort of a side project, or is it in one of the seasons?
Oh, it's in
Oh,
one
it's
of
a
the
Treehouse
Treehouse of Horror.
Because
Yeah,
I
it's
might
what,
sit
like-
down and watch that.
It
think
must
it's like
have
the
been
fifth one, isn't it?
94 or something. Ages. It was really one of the 90s episodes.
Yeah,
I
but
watched it the other day. I think it's Treehouse of Horror 6 or
I think it's
5.
5.
yeah, I think
Season
it's
6
5.
episode.
Yeah.
Horror 5.
I'll just go on to Disney Plus and just search for it on there.
It's really funny. Because like even as a kid it was funny, but then like watching it after you, when you watch it like fresh in your mind, The Shining, it's hilarious. But yeah, no,
the
I
bit
would
where
have
they do the bit with the bat going up the stairs, I fucking creased up. I must have seen that scene like a fucking million times, but it's still fucking funny.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I would have seen that like way before I saw The Shining, and I suppose like I'm just thinking of it as I'm saying it now, but like the fact that The Shining is so scary to me, even though my first exposure of it was a Simpsons parody, is, I mean, I think that's a point towards it as well. But what was I going to say? It's gone.
Wendy
Oh,
theory.
that was it. Right, yeah. So one of the things that I find really interesting about The Shining is that you're able to do that. Like you're able to do like because it's not like a full episode of The Simpsons. It's only like 7 or 8 minutes. So
Yeah.
you're able to kind of like condense it down into just like a series of moments.
Yeah,
And
all
it's
the core elements.
yeah, and it's instantly recognizable just from those moments in The Simpsons. But then equally, if you want to sit and kind of like analyze every different thing that's going on, like it's so open to interpretation. And yeah, there's a lot of really interesting ones. Like some kind of like hold more weight than others, but they're all pretty interesting. Like there's a documentary on Amazon Prime for free at the minute. I think it's called Room 237 or whatever the room number is in The Shining.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
And it goes through all of the different interpretations. Like there's one interpretation that is actually about violence towards Native Americans, and there's one that I really like actually is that it's about kind of like sort of the human history of kind of like violence and abuse towards one another. And the reason that I really like that one is because in the maze later on where Danny escapes, the way that he does it, if you're thinking of it in terms of it being a film about kind of like a history of abuse and sort of violence on a sort of like humanity scale, it's really interesting because in that scene he retraces his footsteps and kind of like sort of learns from his history to escape. And I think that's really cool.
That's smart.
But yeah, there's loads of different readings, and like one is that it's not a film about Jack going mad, it's actually a film about Wendy going mad. I haven't actually, I don't know if I've seen the video that you watched, Alex, so it might be better if you go into that one. But yeah, there's loads of different ones, and another one that's really interesting just before we go into that. And like I'll just say before I go into it, I don't believe that this is like true, but I do think it's very interesting. So one theory is that the film was made so that Stanley Kubrick could confess to faking the moon landings. And it's like, yeah, like the look that you just gave the camera there, Emmanuel, is exactly like what I thought when I was watching this documentary that came up. Because it's like, because like I was saying, like it's really interesting that you can kind of like blow it out and interpret it in so many different ways. But I was watching this documentary and this guy started talking about the moon landings, and I was kind of like, oh, all right, man, you're losing me a bit now. But it's just,
I mean,
Every time I glance at Emmanuel, he's just like,
but it is a really interesting thing. So like, I mean, I don't believe that the moon landing was faked, and I don't believe that the footage was faked and all of that stuff. But there was a conspiracy theory that Stanley Kubrick would have been aware of, that he faked the moon landing. So I can kind of believe that he might have weaved some stuff into this to like just to mess with people.
Yeah, but have you heard the theory on top of the theory? Stanley Kubrick was so thorough about taking the moon landing, he wanted to film it on location.
But yeah, no, but
in theories on that.
but in this documentary, like when they're talking about it, like I said, it sort of first comes up and they start saying like, oh yeah, and this is kind of like, this is all one big confession to Stanley Kubrick faking the moon landing. Like they kind of say it as casually as that, and I was kind of, yeah, at the time I was like, all right, this is getting a bit silly now. But when you think of the type of filmmaker that Stanley Kubrick was, like there's a really famous photograph of him on the set of The Shining, and he's like arranging all of like the tins that are on the food store shelves, and he's like making sure that they're all facing the right way. And apparently he even got in touch with this company who made cardboard boxes, because he was like, I don't like how the lids fit on these cardboard boxes, can you make me some cardboard boxes with better lids? And like he was like really sort of like granular detail orientated. So like thinking of it in terms of that, so as well as kind of listening to this guy talking about the moon landings, so I was just sat there like, oh, okay, whatever. And then he started talking about how the pattern on the carpet is the same as the launch pad pattern that NASA would have used. And I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting that the carpet was like resembling the launch pad. And then Danny stands up, and as he stands up, you realize he's wearing a jumper with the Apollo Air Shuttle on it. And it's just like, so he's kind of like, he stood up from what resembles a launch pad with the rocket on his jumper. And man, if I wasn't sitting down, I would have fallen over at that point, because it's like that does make sense. So yeah, I don't believe that it was faked, and I don't believe that it's him confessing it, but I do believe that he would have tried to fuck with people. And yeah, that's really interesting.
I was wondering about the significance of what he was wearing. Sorry, Emmanuel.
Nah, I'm sorry to interrupt twice. I mean, I could believe that he was just like, well, if people believe it, I'll just put an Easter egg and just put it in there anyway.
Yeah.
To be honest, it just feels like a film about an abusive husband who goes crazy because of the ghost and tries to kill his family. And that's pretty much it.
To be fair, it's a simple story. You're right. You're not wrong about saying any of that.
I think it's a little bit like The Exorcist, because it's kind of it kind of gives you back what you bring to it in a similar way, I think. But yeah, Alec, do you wanna talk about that video? Because I'm not sure I've seen it.
Oh, the bit that, yeah. So you said about like kind of stuff in the set design was indicating that this was Wendy's hallucination and not Jack going crazy. And I was like, what the fuck do you mean set design? So like I was like looking at, I found a thing about the Wendy theory, and the Wendy theory is basically like something that people point out where like the things in the room, like bits of furniture are different between like cuts in the same scene. Because there's like a chair will be in the background during some dialogue, and then it will cut to Wendy, and then it will cut back, and the chair will be gone. Or like light switches will be present or not present, or there'll be, as Rob mentioned, like jars of stuff like Kool-Aid. When they're in the storeroom, like these jars of Kool-Aid like disappear and reappear between cuts. But it's always when the supernatural stuff is happening. So she's imagined this. So like, it was really fucking interesting. I'll link it if you want. But it was all sort of stuff because it's like the scene where she comes up to him when he's typing. When there's just kind of like dialogue where they're kind of just chatting. There's like the chairs in the background. I think it's one or the other. But like when Jack starts getting angry and shouting at her, the chair's not there, and it's like she then walks away and he like looks at her like, what the fuck? But the chair's back, and it's like, oh, that's how it's all been constructed to show like there's like a hallucination going on there, and it's something you wouldn't necessarily even pick up, but it's just little placement of things. And like sorry, I'm not doing it justice. but I was really fucking impressed because it was all, and I was like, what about fucking Halloran? How does he know to get back? And he's like, oh well, I'll tell you. And he goes like, well, this is what's happening here. And I was like, fuck man, that really makes sense. And I was like just so impressed with it because it's all like just how shots are arranged and how the set is arranged. And he's like removed bits but put bits back in, and he's had to map this all out and everything. I was just like, fucking hell. The amount of effort that you must have gone into to do that is mental.
Mm.
But at the same time, you then make it about a lady hallucinating. And this is why I said I've never been more impressed, but also more disappointed, because I was like fucking blown away like at how clever that was. And then I was like, but now it's not about an otherworldly horror that lives in a hotel. It's about a lady having a hallucination. And I was like, oh.
I mean, saying that, I think it's kind of like how, I don't know, to me, that kind of stuff feels more like similar to the ominous things that were happening to birds before birds start actually attacking. There's just little strange things that's happening. And the lady, we don't see her having full on kind of like hallucinations or being affected full on by the hotel until right near the end. But to me, like the hotel is affecting all of them. Like the kid first, because he's a psychic. The father, because there could be multiple reasons, but I could care less about him. And then eventually the wife, but only when she's really down in this really dark, scared place does she start seeing stuff. So there might be on some kind of level where if they're not psychic, and we don't know if the father has some kind of latent abilities, but he's just never known. The way the film is done, because the father starts being in touch with that from early on, but then also, is there a theory or something talking about how he's related to the place? because I know that obviously at the end it suggests that,
Mm.
but I didn't really try and figure it out.
Well, there's like a theory that it's kind of like Jack's like a reincarnation of someone who was in the hotel, or like the hotel absorbs you, like because he says in like in like the scene where he goes into the golden room, he's like, I'd sell my soul for a glass of beer, and that's when they start like manifesting. So I think you could interpret it as like it once you start acting as an agent for it, it will like absorb you into its history and stuff like that. Which I think this is the thing. I really fucking dig horrors that are about like eldritch horrors of like like beyond our reality and stuff like that. That is my fucking jam. I love that shit. So when you make it about a lady
Jam
being
or
a-
shit? What do you like, jam or shit?
Jam.
Oh man.
But
You said saying that, if you like that, this is going slightly off topic.
Jam.
What do you think of the series of American Horror Story? That's to me very much. It almost references this in a way.
I can't fucking stand American Horror Story.
I was just wondering because they have a
Rob
similar
showed me it.
concept with the ghost living in a hotel, but obviously,
Oh no, I don't necessarily mean the concept of a ghost in a hotel, but just kind of like that there's a collective of like the hotel is kind of conscious and like it,
yeah.
you know, stuff like that.
but I
Um,
think that's the thing though. Like with
Do you remember showing me American Horror Story? And we got to
Yeah.
like episode
showed-
3, and it
I
was
showed
like
you
it
the
was
wrong
like that,
series.
it was like that group of the people who were like, we're gonna recreate this murder that happened in this house, and they're like, they're gonna kill someone, and they're like, it didn't happen in this bathroom, and these people who've obviously researched this shit go, oh fuck, is it not in this room? And I was like, I'm not watching Monty Python.
Oh, did you not see the hotel one?
Oh, I don't know. I've seen 3 episodes and I thought they were shit.
The only
Oh,
ones I've seen, I think it's Murder House was the first one, and then I can't remember what the name of the second one was. Was it Asylum?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Asylum was the last one I watched because when they started involving like Nazis and aliens, I was like, this is too
Oh
absurd.
man. Okay.
I
Well,
remember when
I
I
only
stopped.
seen the hotel one, which was a different season. I got made to watch it, but it was very similar to how the kind of. So imagine there was a series done just about like all the ghosts in this hotel that was in Denver, and how it affects normal people who come into there. That was basically what it was about.
Hmm.
And I also didn't see much of the other horror stories. I thought they were kind of crap, but this was kind of decent. But it just reminded me of that. So I feel like they kind of maybe they took influence from this film. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I would have been, I guess, interested if more of some of the more supernatural things were explained a bit more, but not that it needed to, but there was just, I don't know.
It goes kind of hand in hand because like they get more into it in the book, and I think like Jack as a character is like more relatable because in this I don't think he seems like an irritated asshole from the very start, and I'm like, fucking hell. But like in the book he's like more he's just kind of more in like a tricky place, and it's like things have kind of got away from him, and he's going to try and use this job at the hotel to turn around and bring everything back, and he's going to stop drinking, and he's going to fix his marriage, and he's going to write his book, and he's going to get his job back. And then him taking an interest in stuff in the hotel because the hotel is interesting is what fucks him. And it's really deceptive, and I think that's really cool. But like I can see why Stephen King was pissed off at this adaptation, because you lose a lot of that and it becomes Jack Torrance is a dick, and then ghosts start taking advantage of that.
But I think the way he did it, and I don't blame him for doing it the way, just seeing the best 5 minute scene, whatever kind of remade crap that Stephen King tried to do himself. It obviously he was trying to bring up more of the supernatural side, but the way he's done The Shining, it's a very much, I think it's an easier to digest film for mass audiences than the kind of supernatural side he was going for. And not that it wouldn't have been hard to digest, because you have things like Carrie and whatnot. But I don't know. I think he took probably a good direction with it. I mean,
Well, I think
I wouldn't care if it wasn't made, but there you go.
Well, I think that's why the ambiguity is like it really works for it, because so one thing that's like always referenced when people are talking about like whether it's a film about Wendy or whether it's a film about Jack, there's two things actually, and they're both quite interesting because they're so ambiguous. And it
Sorry, Pat just fucking lobbed something.
But yeah, no, there's two things with the Wendy stuff, and like they're both really interesting because it's kind of like what I was saying at the start, like where the film sort of like prepares you for stuff that doesn't necessarily happen. And something that I like in it too is like with my migraines. So because my migraines are quite severe, like I get like blind spots and like I can't talk properly and like all of that stuff, I get really paranoid that I'm about to have one. And it's that same kind of thing of like preparing you for something that doesn't necessarily happen, because like I'll be looking at something and I'll in the back of my mind I'll be thinking, can I see that properly, or is there a blind spot in my field of vision? And like it's always that kind of thing. And the two things that like really add to that feeling of like I'm not sure if something's not right here, or if I'm misinterpreting something, or if something else is going on, is there's one scene where Wendy and Danny are like sat in front of the TV, and the TV's on, and like Wendy's watching TV and like Danny's like playing on the floor, but the TV isn't plugged in. And so you can interpret that either way. You can either go, okay, so Wendy's crazy and she's hallucinating that, or you can say there's something not right about this hotel and they're showing her this image and that kind of thing. So I really like that kind of thing. And there's another scene later on which is a similar thing where you can interpret it as the hotel is a being of its own, and it's like it's able to manipulate these things, or it's Wendy hallucinating. And it's where Danny is in the hallway on his own, and he's just playing, and somebody rolls a ball to him. And so when somebody rolls the ball to him, it kind of comes up perfectly. So with like the pattern of the carpet, there's like a path in front of him that he's kind of using as a road for his toy cars.
I'm really glad you brought this up.
And then the ball rolls to him and it goes perfectly down this line. And then when he stands up, the pattern is the other way. So it's like he's trapped in there. And so again, you can interpret it as, okay, Wendy's hallucinated this and she hasn't got the pattern right. Or you can interpret it as this hotel is evil and it's trapped him in a geometric pattern. and it's that kind of thing. It's like nothing's really happened.
You goddamn hexagons.
It's just that thing is like nothing's really happened, but something's not quite right, and I find that really unsettling.
Because I love, because that's something like you didn't notice it, but your brain did.
Yeah.
And it's like your brain just noticed that the carpet's gone the other way. You even if you haven't picked it up consciously, your brain's gone, hang on, something's a bit odd now.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like looking like, who's at the end of this fucking hallway? And you're like looking for someone. It's sort of like the Haunting of Hill House, like that show on Netflix. And I'm like looking around for like just someone in the background or like just a silhouette and things. And when I was watching that scene, I was like tricking myself and going like, there's someone at the end of the fucking hallway. I can see him. And I was like, I can't see it. No, I can't. No, I can't. It's a plant.
To be honest,
that's what I do at home. I'm like, There's someone, and there's someone. No, it's my fridge. It's fine.
Bye. Yeah, to be honest, I think it's like Rob, but the second point you were saying, because the chef guy, the black guy, he said like some things have a shine of their own, and yeah,
What was that?
What was that?
I heard the shinning.
Sorry.
That sounded like an angry spirit.
Someone's been drinking Angry Spirits.
that'd be funny.
I'm not the lady.
Yeah,
James Silent Bob Strike Back. Sorry.
Continue.
Sorry, Emmanuel. Carry on.
No, it's funny. Oh man, but yeah, he did say that. He basically said that the hotel was alive. In other words, and yeah, he wasn't of much help. At least the kid had a little solace that he wasn't alone. But yeah, I think the hotel, everything is set up so that this has probably happened multiple times. Not the killing people, but the going crazy. Everyone who's been a caretaker there has probably lost it, which is why they keep doing this every winter. And the people who send someone or recommend someone never tell them, because yeah, that other guy's the only one who killed people, but no one else has brought their family there. Point is, there's a reason. Like the hotel has a history. Everyone goes crazy, and he's being very serious at the beginning, and he's not just doing it for the sake of it. He's just like, because in his mind, he knows everyone who does this, no matter how strong or cool they are, or how much they like solitude, it always ends one way. They end up crazy, and then don't come back, or worse. So the hotel itself is alive, and it's like maybe when it's empty, it takes advantage and things play out again, and they start driving the person crazy, and then yeah, I think the hotel messes with him.
I must admit,
that's the stuff that I find like so fascinating, because like I don't know, I think like if you kind of have like sort of an anxious mind, I think like this stuff is like really, really, really effective, because you're waiting for something to come out and go boo. So the fact that it doesn't just kind of prolongs the anxiety that something's going to come out and go boo at some point. And like, to be absolutely fair, I don't think anything ever comes out and goes boo, but like you're always waiting for it. And it's to the point where when I was watching it and like there was a particularly kind of tense scene, my rat decided to go. I was like, "You cunt!" like, but like that's sort of. So when you're watching these, do you not have that? Do you not kind of have that sort of like dread that something's about to come out and go? But like, do you just hear the music and just go like?
Yeah,
It's just a hallway.
I think if Camilla was watching this, she definitely would have. But there's a reason she can't handle horrors. I thought
Really?
that
Can
the
she
use
not?
of I thought the use of music and sound was very effective in that way, or would have been for most people. I thought the way they use it is good, because they're putting this feeling in there when otherwise it wouldn't be there. If it wasn't for the sound of music, it would just be like, okay. But like, I knew the music was foreboding. It was foreshadowing crap that was going to happen, and that it was just always going to get worse. Yes, I might not feel anxious, but that was just me, because of me like not really, enjoy it. But I did think it was effective in foreshadowing that it's going to get worse. Something is going to happen. But obviously, we don't know exactly what's going to happen. It's more of, okay, it's probably going to repeat. So we're just watching this guy who already said it was like crazy deja vu. He already said it felt like he knew the whole place already. So whatever's happened or whatever's happening is probably going to be the hotel and the ghost trying to repeat that same event again, like it happened in the past. But fortunately, it escaped.
Mm.
And then he starts singing. Rob, do you know why he starts singing that song and then just suddenly stops?
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. Because there's a few things towards the end that Jack Nicholson just like did on the fly. So like the most famous one is the "Here's Johnny" scene. So that wasn't in the script. Like he literally just like poked his head through, shouted "Here's Johnny," and Stanley Kubrick was like, "Oh, that worked. That was all right."
I've read about this one. So they took that whole scene took ages to do. Like I think they said it took 6 weeks to perfect. They went through 80 doors. And then when that scene finally got perfected, Jack got bored, stuck his head through, said, "Here's Johnny," and they were like, "That's the one."
Yeah, no, apparently Stanley Kubrick was like, "That's brilliant," and he didn't realize it was a reference to like a chat show that was on American TV because he didn't watch TV.
Oh, that's why The Simpsons parody it with that random other chat show phrase. That makes more sense now.
Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it. Can you imagine doing a take like fucking 80 times and you go through 80 doors and you're like, for fuck's sake, and then you just go, "Oh, I'm gonna fuck about now," and then the first time you fuck about, Stanley Kubrick's like,
Oh, hi,
excellent, chef's kiss there.
Yeah.
It's a shame Dan didn't come. I changed my name for a reference with him.
He might have.
He might be right now.
I'm coming, Dan.
Yeah, no, it is a shame because I wanted to tell him the Blade Runner thing, but I'll tell him next week.
No, you
Was he
won't.
having a heart attack or something at the end?
You're down.
When
Oh, Jack.
having a heart attack.
No, he gets tired and gets frozen.
No, yeah,
Like,
he's
frozen.
just like,
Yeah, because the whole
Oh,
thing is like
funny.
how harsh the winter is, isn't it?
yeah.
Bloody
I
Denver.
don't know. He just kept grabbing he kept grabbing where his heart was.
I thought
I
that
think
was
you
just because like the air was so thin, and then also with it being so cold, it's just like impossible to get your breath.
You could also interpret it as like they've got away and the ghosts just going like, "Wow, fuck you," and then they just start killing him.
Okay. It could be many things. The ghost did say that, well, you couldn't finish the task like we
Yeah.
talked about.
Mm.
So what's the
Not up to
point?
this task.
What's the point? Really?
Mm.
See, I really think that you'd like the book because, like, I think most of your problems with this aren't things that are present. Because, like, also Pat might like it because it ends with a big explosion.
Oh yeah, it does.
See, in a book, I can't see the explosion.
Yeah.
My bad.
You need like a little flip
Imagine-
book at the end.
Yeah.
Imagine
Also,
the story.
There is something I noticed between the Blu-rays for both of these films, this and Doctor Sleep. On The Shining, it says Stanley Kubrick's The Shining,
Mm.
and on Doctor Sleep, it says Stephen King's Doctor Sleep.
Oh,
See, I'm so interested in seeing that because it's trying to be a sequel to both. It's trying to like adapt the book, but in the book, the hotel gets destroyed, but in the film, the hotel is still there, and it's trying to be a sequel to both of them. And it's like, ooh, that's really interesting. What?
How does it get destroyed?
So like, it's a big sort of element where the boiler, if you don't release steam from the boiler, it will just build up.
yeah.
But because like but near the
That
end,
makes sense.
near the end, like Jack is like pretty much possessed by nearly all the ghosts in the hotel. So like they're all like feeding into him and they're trying to kill Danny. But he spends so long trying to get to him that the steam in the boiler like builds up, and then the whole fucking building explodes. And it's
Mm.
but
That makes
crucially, Jack, I can't remember what it is, but Jack gets out of like their control for a split second and saves Danny and Wendy. So like there's a bit more, there's kind of a little bit of a redemption thing to this, whereas like he's just sort of a puppet in this. So again, can see why Stephen King was a bit pissed off. But
I don't know. I feel like what was already there was exacerbated or just taken further. Because he was already, in the film version anyway, rather than the book, he was already a dick who was abusive, had a problem, and he wasn't a good husband. Like, even the fact of bringing them there in the first place, there's a lot of very selfish reasons around it all. I know the book is very different, so he's not relatable here. But in the film, it feels like someone said something similar already. Like he became an agent for their kind of desires and whims.
it was me.
But because of what was already there, it used what was already there and brought it out to the surface and made it more than what it was. So yes, he wouldn't have killed them usually, but in his mind, he was already abusive, and that abuse was normalized. So they just pushed that up way, way high.
Yeah.
But
So I could definitely see how you could watch this film as Stephen King and go, oh, you really just fucking dumbed that down, didn't you? You really just I wrote this whole fucking character and he's got all these insecurities, and that's how the ghosts kind of get to him, and it all kind of comes to a head in that, and you just turned it into, oh, he was a dick from the start. Like, I can see how you could read it that way, and I think that, I don't know, I might even agree that's kind of the case, but like the Wendy theory changed a lot for me.
It is really interesting because it's like if you sort of talk to people who are like massive genre fans, so like rather than being sort of like general film fans, they're literally just fans of horror. A lot of them really don't like The Shining because I think
Ed doesn't.
Yeah, like it's like Stanley Kubrick was kind of seen as like a bit of an outsider when he made it, because I think I think well with everything like this really, like there's quite a lot of gatekeeping that goes on, and I think it was kind of seen as like, you know, sort of like Wes Craven and John Carpenter are the guys who make horror, like Stanley Kubrick isn't, and I think there was a bit of a sense of like,
imagine going, no, Stanley Kubrick, you're not as good as Wes Anderson. No. Craven, sorry.
Yeah, I think there's like a lot of a lot of rejection from like pure horror fans just because like Stanley Kubrick, like he'd already made like the great sci-fi with like 2001, and then he'd made like the great war satire with Doctor Strangelove, and I think a lot of people saw it as him going like, oh, so now I'm going to go into horror and I'm going to make the great horror for you, and a lot of horror fans were like, no, we don't want you to do that.
No, we want Freddy Krueger. He's really good. We want Freddy Krueger in this one.
Yeah, but yeah, it's quite a controversial film for that reason. Like a lot of like Stephen King, I suppose, would probably fall into that like genre person, wouldn't he? Because when you think of Stephen King, you don't think of things like Stand By Me. You think of like Carrie and Pet Sematary and all of that stuff.
Did it? What was the reputation it had when it came out? Like, were critics against it or were they for it? I can't remember.
I think it was really, really polarized.
Yeah. Even Mark Kermode hates it, and he's like, but then I think he falls into that like horror fan.
Because I think it's like a school of thought of like, if it's like an adaptation of a book and it doesn't follow the book 1-to-1, it's shit, and that's bollocks. That is absolute bollocks. I think if you were to watch this film, regardless of the book, completely fucking stands up. Like it's not even a question.
Yeah.
I think it's like, you know, just not even on like a production level, fucking phenomenal. The story's possibly like a little bit simplistic, but like, you know, I think like the level of atmosphere it is building up. Like as someone who's read the book, I'm like, man, I know this isn't the book, but fucking hell, it's still scaring the shit out of me. Like, Jesus. And like the book and the film are both good. They both have merit to themselves. Like, it doesn't have to follow the book. They're their own things. But I think you do get this, again, gatekeeping where you go, oh, well, it wasn't the book. And it's like, yeah, well, it's a film, so fuck off.
Yeah. There's a scene in The Shining that it's cheeky, but I really like it. So in the book, the car that the family have is a red Beetle, whereas in the film it's a yellow Beetle. And when Halloran's driving back to the hotel, he drives past the wreckage of a red Beetle at the side of the road, and it kind of gets interpreted as Stanley Kubrick being like, "Yeah, this is my film. Fuck you, Stephen King."
Oh wait, say that again. So whose car?
So in the book, the film, the car that the family drive is a red Volkswagen Beetle, but in the film it's a yellow one. And yeah, when Halloran's driving back, there's like a wreckage at the side of the road, and it's just a red Beetle that's been like torn apart. And
there's a whole thing in the book where there's like I don't think there's a maze in it, but like it's got like it's got like hedge animals.
Oh, they're in the highlight reel.
Yeah. I just saw them and I was like, what would that look like? And just watching that, I was like, oh,
the poor animals.
Well, the whole thing with the hedge animals is that they're kind of like weeping angels. So if you don't look at them, they move. But then you look back and they're closer, and you look back and they're closer, and you look back and they're closer, and you're like, oh my fucking God, that's so scary. But not in the Stephen King directed one, because it looks shit. So I was like, why don't? Because that was the thing. Like they go outside to. I can't remember what it was. I read it when we were going to Australia, and I read it on pretty much the whole plane because I was like, the plane can't be haunted, so I'm safe. but like, yeah, they go outside because like they're just, you know, doing normal things, and then they notice that the hedge animals are all kind of converging on them, and then they're getting faster and faster, and then they stop going outside, and it's like, oh, that kind of creates this whole thing where you don't go outside now because the hedge animals are all going to fucking kill you. And like, because Halloran has like a standoff with them and stuff, and it's quite cool, but I don't know how well it would have worked like on screen, because Halloran's still alive by the end of it. So
I think if anyone could have pulled it off, it's probably Stanley Kubrick. But I think
I'd love
I'm happy that he didn't
Stanley
try.
Kubrick actually like adapt it, like word for word. But like, I'm not upset that he didn't. I think this works very, very
It'd
well.
be a very different film.
Yeah.
It.
I just liked it.
I probably would have liked it if he did it like the book, but you know, that's just a personal thing. Like, I think he did a good job. I just don't enjoy watching that.
Yeah, I must admit that is something that I do like about your scores. Is I saw you put 2 in enjoyment, and I was like, that's fine because the rest might still be high.
If you didn't like it, why don't you just give it all 1s?
But no, because I thought it was a really well made film. It's just like, personally, I don't enjoy watching a husband being abusive to his wife the whole film and then trying to kill her. It's just like, this is not enjoyable.
That's part of why I like that's a big reason why I like the book, because like he is trying his absolute best to make himself better, and the hotel starts fucking with him, and there's like a noticeable bit where he like, I don't know, like he kind of says something that's like really, really out of character, and everyone goes, whoa, what the fuck was that? And he's like, what the fuck was that? Shit, I didn't mean to say that. And it's like, that's really fucking powerful. But like with this one, you're like, oh, he probably might have said that over breakfast. I don't know. He's just a bit of a cunt.
I must admit though, so there is a scene that I think is like quite effective on that level, and it's where he's at his typewriter and then Wendy comes in and disturbs him. Because at first when she's like, "Oh, it's going to rain tomorrow," and he's like, "What do you want me to do about it?" When he says that, I'm like, you know what, I can relate to that because it's not nice to be disturbed when you're in the middle of writing something. And then he starts getting more and more aggressive, and you're like, okay, that is a bit rude. Like he's going a bit far now.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I think you can get it from her performance because she acts like this is like kind of a. I get it's like a little bit strained, but like her thinking this is fine, and then being so distressed when he reacts that way. I'm like, okay, so it's not. This isn't normal.
Mm.
So I'm like, that's still there. That's not something that you can't just like you can't say that's not there.
Mm.
That is there in her performance, but people just say that she's shit at this. So I'm like, so like I just ignore it. But like it would have been nice to see it for ourselves, I think.
That's an interesting thing actually, just going back to what you said earlier, Ben, about how this was received when it first came out. So Shelley Duvall was actually nominated for a Razzie.
Really?
Yeah,
That's-
yeah.
Well, she was pretty much genuine. She reacted how most mothers would if their husband went insane.
Yeah.
I don't think she's like a good actress. I don't
she
know
was
if I'd say
terrible.
she does like a good job here, but
But
like,
she's not Razzie worthy though. She's not
I
that
don't.
bad.
I think she's like underrated here. Like
I think she's
I think
definitely
she's
underrated.
fine.
Yeah, she
I mean,
Does it-
like,
performs credibly.
because it's a bit like, because when she's just sort of acting normally, she's kind of doing like the, I don't know, I'm not very confident and I'm a bit of a wallflower kind of thing, and that's quite hard to sort of ring true as an actress anyway. Especially now because you kind of look at it and go like, oh, is that her or is that just how the character is? It's a bit like Nancy Allen in Blowout. But later on, when like Jack's coming through the door and like all of that stuff, I think part of the reason I find those scenes so scary is because she looks so genuinely terrified.
Mhm.
So,
Well,
yeah.
her face starts terrifying me because she looks so gaunt. But like it cuts to like the elevator and there's all blood coming out, and I'm like, ugh! And then it cuts back to her and she's all pale and like this, and I'm like, ah!
Oh yeah. And I don't know if this is another reference or just if they took inspiration or not. Has anyone here played Control?
No.
I'm playing it at the minute.
You
John
you
is.
know how you go down the hallways in the building. There was some shots in this that reminded me of that. Just the kind of ominous, there's nothing there, but you know there's things, the building's alive and there's things that's
Yeah.
alive there. And you're just like, what's going to come out or happen?
Oh.
It's a great game. If
Rob,
anyone
you'd like it as well.
Mate,
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do it because just talking,
if you
just us talking about this, I'm like fixated on the little square that's me, and I keep looking behind myself,
The
and I'm
square.
expecting at any moment for something to be there that I don't expect, and
What the fuck is that?
I'm finding this all very uncomfortable. I'm really
Well-
glad that Rachel's awake.
Yeah, why is it
Rob.
green, Rob?
A little while ago, when you were all talking about how scary it was, I was sort of looking behind you, and I thought your blinds were lifted up.
Oh,
Don't-
dude,
Don't do that to
Oh,
her.
man.
That's not fair.
I can feel that
I had to double check to see if it was or not.
my neck just tensed up, man. That was horrible.
What if the two twins were two Johns?
You
Two-
asked.
two
Oh my
Johns.
god. To be fair, if you turn the corner and there was two Johns in little blue dresses,
Okay.
Princess.
but seriously, Rob, if you
Oh, Jesus. Oh,
if
God.
you ever did play it and you could get through it, I feel like it'd be very rewarding because it's such a really great tense experience.
I think
With
I like that you're saying that as Pat is about to give him a heart attack.
But you nearly gave me a heart attack there because you said Rob literally as I got an email, and the two together just really scared me.
Do you actually like horror?
I love horror, but I don't like the effect it has on me. That's why I have to watch films like Stand By Me straight after.
Is that the segue? Should we come back? Should we come back to The Shining?
Well,
Because, you
I'm
know-
gonna go and get a drink quickly.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's
No,
all right. Let's have an intermission. Let's all calm down.
But as a final word on it, though, what a masterpiece to be able to scare the shit out of me, and all we're doing is talking about it.
This is this funny bit though, because I said to Ed like, "Oh, did you want to watch The Shining?" And she was like, "No." And I was like, "But you love horror films," and she's like, "Yeah, not that one though." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I was
Yeah.
like, "This is scaring the fucking shit out of me." And she's like, "I can't believe you're being scared by a horror." And I was like,
That's
"Oh,
basically Mark Commode's attitude towards it as well, because like he always says like that he went to the cinema to see it and he was just waiting for something scary to happen and it never did, and I'm just like, dude, the whole fucking thing is
That's-
terrifying. Like,
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because
This
the
is the
mood and
thing.
atmosphere of the whole film is just like dread. all the
Yeah.
way through.
and I listened
Mhm.
to a podcast with him as well where he had somebody on his podcast who really loved The Shining. And they were basically like they were talking about why they liked it so much, and he just kept coming back at them like, yeah, but what's scary? And they were like, well, I can't. It's hard to put it into words because it's not like a tangible thing. It's just a feeling that the film makes.
I'm
And
really
that
surprised.
to me is
at
way
that.
more than anything that you could do with like a jump
I'm
scare. or
really
anything.
surprised that Mark Commode was saying like, do you
Uh,
not like that? Is that not like the essence of horror? Like sort of like setting up this mood that something's about to happen,
That's,
Mm.
but
that's
then it
horrible.
doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that
Like-
that is literally horror. Like that is like you're waiting for something to happen and then it doesn't, and that's the fact that it doesn't is kind of a relief, but the fact that it hasn't yet is also sort of worse.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
that is the essence of it, and you're going like, "Whoa, why didn't? What were you scared by though? Because like no one was there." And it's
You
like,
know
if
what?
someone was there, it'd be fine. I'd know what the fuck I was dealing with.
Yeah.
You know what I think it is? And I think because especially when it came out, this came out in 1980. So
Mhm.
I wonder if it was like how people in Asia or Japan would have received this. But oh,
It sounded like Pat just shouted, "Fine."
I'd have done it.
It's
I'd have
like-
liked it.
okay. But
Cold.
Asia is renowned for their psychological horrors and how they tend to prefer it, and it leaves them with lots of questions leaving the
Here's
film as well.
Johnny.
Just like you were saying, Rob, like the way he was approaching this film is how a lot of Asian directors will approach their horror films as psychological horrors, and a lot of Western horror isn't just psychological.
Mm.
It has some kind of other physical element. I mean, yes, he did just kill someone, just straight up kill someone, and was trying to kill his wife and son. But that was the horror. The fact that you didn't know what was going to happen. You thought he's going to end up killing them because she's freaking weak, and the kid, he's just a kid. He has no training in his powers. Like we don't know what's going to happen to him. It could end up another Carrie. Like who knows what happens. And it's just that slow psychological build. But that is still a horror. But maybe especially at the time, it wasn't considered a horror because it wasn't a horror in the sense that most Western horrors were.
Yeah, I do think it's really ahead of its time because it's
Mm.
probably the first of what I don't like the term. I really don't like it, but it's one of the first of like what people would now call like elevated horror. But it's I don't know. I really hate it because like when people say like, oh, it's an elevated horror, it's like, so you just mean horror. Like it's like saying like,
What's elevated?
oh, it's
Elevated?
people tend to use it as kind of
It's-
like a catch-all for intelligent films. Like it's
It's not a James Wan. There's a spooky nun that goes boo.
I mean, to me, it's just a psychological horror, but okay.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
but,
I wouldn't want to. I want to start saying elevated. Like that's pretty wanky, to be honest.
yeah. But it's the like when people like I say, I don't like the term, but when people sort of call something an elevated horror, it's usually because it's like it's not sort of, there's no kind of like villain as such. Like the villain is kind of like, well, it's like I was saying before, it's like with The Exorcist, you kind of take from it what you bring. And it's that kind of thing of like, yeah, basically a
doesn't
film that
rely
will
on-
just like mess with your mind rather than giving you something to go, "Ah!"
I just
Yes.
want to I just want to kind of like do like a little kind of tally here, because like I feel like I know what I feel like me and Rob react to these things in the same way, where like we watch the film and we go, okay, we're done with that now, and then we go and take a piss and we are just fucking like just tensed up, and we're like, if something like jumps out at me, I'm gonna rip its tits off. Like fuck me, like because does anyone else have that, or does everyone else just fucking go to bed like straight after, like completely fine?
To be fair, I can
Fine.
go to bed just fine.
Oh,
Yeah.
Ben, you're not human.
I'm
I also
good-
find
I'm
things
fine
creepy
after.
and scary, but I'm not like traumatized.
That's
Oh,
fine,
no.
Ben's fine.
What did you say, Pat?
I'm generally fine.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Oh
Like,
God.
don't get me wrong. Like, I can find things disturbing and effed up, but it's
It doesn't
I
play in your
don't-
mind as much.
yeah, and I think it depends how much, not just like how much your mind is invested in it, because it depends how much your mind will separate that this is just a film and this is reality, and take some of those facts and kind of place them over in your head to make you go like afterwards.
Yeah, there's a really interesting bit of science about it actually that I read a little while ago, and
Mm.
I don't remember like the specifics of it, but it basically said that like in kind of their most sort of like engaging sort of, well, in the most kind of like engaging reaction you can have to a film, your brain basically interprets it as a memory, and some people are more susceptible to that than others, and I think I'm really susceptible to that because
Oh,
like with this, I mean, I'd be walking from the front room to the bedroom and like my mind would just like overlay an image of the twins in front of me and like just things like that. Like I think it's
man.
something to do with like how the human brain is evolved, but like yeah, it can basically interpret a film as a memory, and then you kind of like learn a coping mechanism from that as if it was a memory, even though it's not actually a memory. So I think sometimes I'll watch a horror film and then something in my mind's going, right, now we have to be prepared for if we see twins. And like it's
I get so immersed in it, and like Eb shows me little horror shorts from like this YouTube channel, and she's like, "Isn't this good?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we're sleeping with all the lights on now." That was really good, but like there was one the other day, and she showed me it, and it's basically like this guy goes and visits his ex, and he gifts him a box, and it's like a wrapped box, and like he doesn't know like the girlfriend's there and everything, but he leaves. So the ex leaves. The girlfriend comes out, and they both unwrap this box. And they're looking at this box, and the box is completely empty in the bottom. And they're like they're like reaching into it, but it doesn't seem to have a bottom. And they're like, "What the fuck is this?" And like they're kind of talking about it in another room. And then when they look back, there is a head coming out of the box and everything. And he's like just peering out, and it's literally like I literally look back, and there's this whole thing, and it's just like there's just a fucking thing looking at you from this box. And I was like, fucking hell. Like that image just fucking struck me. I was like, shit, like that's fucking scary as fuck. But then like the more the story unfolded, the more I was going, doesn't fucking make sense. Because like he doesn't, cause, like the guy like calls up the ex, and he's like, "Why did you give me this box? What? How did you know that? Or what? When? Like, you know, what did it say to you?" And then he's like, "How did you know it could? Well, like, I didn't know it could talk. Like, what the fuck?" And then I was like, "Wait, how do you know anything about this? What the fuck? How do you understand how this works? Why did you give it to him if you know? Hang on,
You know what would have been
what the
better?
fuck are you talking about?" And I was like, None of this fucking makes sense. This is a shit film. However, that visceral image of you look back and there's a fucking bald guy with scary eyebrows looking at you, that stuck with me a couple of days. I was like, that was a shit short film, but that image, cool. I wish that was written better, but at the same time, I don't.
Yeah.
Because
You know
then
what
I'd
would
have
have
The
been
Shining.
better? You know what would have been better? If he was just like, why did you give me this box? And he was just like, what box?
Yeah, that'd have been way better.
Like,
Way
you gave me.
better.
It's like, I haven't been anywhere near there, man. I've been out with my girl.
There we go. Fuck yeah. See, that YouTube channel like does like a collection of them and stuff. So I love that you just made that better without even fucking trying.
Just going back on to sort of Rob's struggles with horrors when he's finished with them.
That could be a film club in itself. Rob struggles with horrors.
Don't mention his blind. There hasn't.
No,
It's
no,
fine.
it's good. So when I was a lot younger, I used to sort of watch them too late, and I used to sort of be shitting myself like Rob does on a regular still. So in my mind,
man.
in my mind, like I watch it, I go to bed, and I quickly go to sleep. So then, if there's any ghosts, it's not going to get me. That's in my mind, to the point that now I could watch The Shining, or I could watch whatever's the scariest thing that you can think of, and I'll go to bed and pass out as if it's a tonic to help me sleep.
Just giving yourself an alternative to sleeping pills.
Basically, like
This is the thing. Like I watch The Conjuring 1, and then I'll go to bed, and then I will be tensed. I will be ready just in case I feel something grab my ankle in the night, and like it stops me going to sleep because I'm waiting for something to grab my leg because I've just seen that happen. It's like I get so immersed in it because because this house is quite old, so I'm just like anytime I hear something and I'm like, is that the rat? That better be the rat because the rat's less scary than this.
Do you know what? I don't think I ever confessed to what actually happened to Rachel, but there was. So you know that thing on.
That was ominous.
So you know that thing that's on Netflix.
I killed her with a butcher knife.
Is it the Haunting of Bly Manor or something like that?
Yeah,
It's the
that
second one.
shit one.
Is it
The
the-
Hill House is the good one.
I think it's Bly Manor. Then it's the one where like there's loads of like mirror stuff going on. Like you'll see like figures in a
the
mirror. And...
remake of a Korean film, Into the Mirror.
I don't
Which is
think so. No, it's
absolutely
a series that's on Netflix.
Is
Um,
it? Hang on. Is it about 5 siblings, or is it about a housekeeper?
I think it's about a housekeeper.
That's
'Cause
Blind Manor.
She gets stuck in like a cupboard, and there's a mirror in there with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Blind Manor.
So I watched an episode of that, and it was similar to what you were saying about the short, Alec, because I kind of stopped the episode and I was like, oh, that was bollocks. And then as soon as it was time to go to bed, I was like, oh dear, because at the time, right? So we've got a mirror that you kind of like hang over a door, and usually it's in the wardrobe. So you open the wardrobe and the mirror's there for you, but the light in the hallway wasn't working at the time. So Rachel put the mirror on the bedroom door so that she could use the light from the bedroom. Even talking about this, I'm getting chills, man. So I just watched this episode, had about 5 minutes where I was going, oh, that was a load of bollocks. Then I turned the lights off and I was like, oh man. So I had to walk from the front room to the bedroom, and there was just this mirror just like staring at me. And I was kind of looking at the mirror and I was like, no, fuck it. So I closed my eyes, ran down the hallway into the bed, woke Rachel up because I ran. And she was like, oh, what's going on? Why are you running? And I was like, oh, I didn't run. It was all right. And I just got into the bed. And I'm not sure I ever confessed to her that that's what happened.
Oh, if she's up, she's definitely heard that. You're going to get such a fucking piss taken when you get there. You fucking ran away from a fucking inanimate object.
you're an inanimate fucking object.
Oh.
Yeah, no.
Emmanuel even laughed at that, and he didn't even fucking like that film.
Wait, which film was that?
That was in Bruges.
Oh,
I think that was your first week.
And it sucked.
Excuse me.
I just it wasn't my type of film.
That's fair.
I remember that like it was yesterday because I remember your scores coming in and then Alec going, "He's hard to please."
I was like, yeah, bring Emmanuel in. Like, no worries. Like, this will be fine. Everyone loves this fucking fit. Oh, it would have been my one, wouldn't it? What do you mean the fucking two? Sorry.
Oh, man.
Carry on.
But yeah,
Anyway,
what,
Just so
what-
we can stop giving you the willies. Sorry, no, actually, you were talking. That's fine.
no, I was just gonna say like, what the? Please tell me that was one of you.
That wasn't
I
me.
was playing Stand By Me
Oh,
just in
thank
the
God.
background,
There's
Thank
don't
God.
be scared.
It was a ghost.
seeing if you would notice. Kind of like how it plays at the beginning of Stand By at the film. It's just like in the background, and you're just like, wait, is that? Oh, they're doing Stand By Me. Okay, cool.
I gotta say though, your camera is making this a little difficult because I'm kind of going like, is there something happening? No, it's just where his
Yeah.
head was.
I don't. I keep
When
having
you
to
played
remind
that-
myself of that.
You could see Rob's hair stand up, and he hasn't got any.
Oh man, I'm actually starting to sweat a bit actually.
Right, let's do Stand By Me.
Oh dear.
Since we've segued with
Yeah,
that
no.
nice little song that freaked you out.
I do.
Could
do
you
regret that
imagine
moment,
being
though.
a fucking ghost and going like, Rob looks a bit scared. I'm gonna fucking just play this on my ghost phone, on my ghost Spotify.
You say that, but that's I do like it when, even though it can ruin a song, when something really like a good song or something quite normal is used in a horror and turned on its head. Like Moon, I don't know if any of you have seen this film, probably not, but Moonlight Sonata is used in this Asian film, but every time it happens, someone dies
Mm.
or drops. It is so ominous, and it's just like, this is like my favorite piano piece. And every once in a while, like, but if I hear it, I remember that film where it's just like, oh yeah, that horror film where people died on the backdrop of this song.
That sounds like Jaws.
Love Exposure has done that for me because I saw an advert the other day that had the I forget what the name of the song is, but it had the music from it.
Oh
And it was,
really?
yeah, it was trying to advertise like a holiday or something, and all I could see was like the upskirt photography.
Oh, no.
All perverts are created equal.
I told my sister about that. She's gonna watch it now.
Oh man,
Well, we're all gonna watch it on your stag do, aren't we?
it's funny, man, because like
No.
when you said that, my heart dropped, man. But I think it's because like somewhere in my mind, your sister's like really young still. I forget she's like an adult now.
Oh,
Yeah, it's like 23,
23, really?
She's that old. Oh.
23, 23, 22. Yeah.
Oh wow.
She's on her like third year of uni now. Next year will be her like her fourth year abroad.
Oh wow.
Our sisters are about the same age then. Where abroad? Oh wait, no, actually, don't say that. You're on recording.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That was well spotted.
That's just a bro. That's a bro code. Yeah. Right.
Oh dear.
Stand By Me.
Do we want a new recording for Stand By Me,